Like, if we want to know why the Browns have had such a problem against Lamar Jackson his entire career, why it's been a problem, right? Unless he throws you 4 interceptions, even then, we still can't do nothing about it, right? The reason is because the interior opens up in the middle when he holds the ball, and then he's just able to escape. I kind of want to transition into what a lot of people are concerned about. It's an area that me and you love to talk about. We talking about the trenches. We talking about the tackles. Now, we're not talking about the offensive tackles. They solid, right? We're not talking about the offensive guards. They solid. Center, solid. Edge, I don't know, G. Are you worried about Myles Garrett?
No, I think he's going to be okay.
You think he's a fluke?
I think him and Jadeveon Clowney will do just fine outside.
So you're telling me Myles Garrett's going to be good this year? That's crazy. All right.
Yeah, I think so.
So that leaves one position group, and it is the defensive tackle room. Now, I did a position review on this. You have specific expertise knowing this is like one of your positions, it's your bread and butter. And man, when I look at this room, I'm like, boy, Perion Winfrey better be a Hall of Famer in the 4th round, because if he's not, I don't know what they're going to do here, right? And I think that expectation is high for Perion.
I mean, well, why you think he sold all them jerseys the first day? I mean, we didn't like 97 for no reason. Like, it wasn't that. It was the fact that there wasn't nobody else in there. Like, you know, you got Sheldon Day and Jordan Elliott and Bryant from Jacksonville, and it's just like Tommy Togiai. You got guys in there that don't really have what I would say a bankable skill set, right? If you say, what does Jordan Elliott do? I'm like, well, I guess he kind of like he there. I guess Tommy Togiai is strong.
Jordan Elliott. I don't know how deep you are in the Pro Football Focus grades, but I believe he has a sub 40 Pro Football Focus grades, but he's had 600 snaps. I don't know what else there is to figure out on him, right? Like,
I mean, if you 40%, like, think about it. If say for instance you like all Fs in college ain't created equally. Like, if you get like a 25%, that's devastating. At least you could get a 59. A 59 is still failing. But to put it in perspective, for you to pass that class, you must now have 1, 2, 3 complete dominating performances and getting A's on the next 2 or 3 tests, and that's not happening.
So
you got to think about it.
Yeah, well, my bad. Yeah, 41.6. He was above 40. 41.6 in 464 snaps. So it's bad. It's not as bad as I thought it was. But here's the thing. In order for him to become a serviceable player, we're talking about a guy you could put out there with like a 55 to 60 grade. He has to make a gigantic leap. And I don't know if that's in him. Yeah, and the thing that scares me, right, is when I look at this defensive interior room. They did this on purpose, but if you're going to line this room up like this, you got to make sure that these dudes can get to the quarterback. But I see 300 pounds, 290, 294, 291, 300. You know, they have what, Jordan Elliott's over 300 pounds. So Jordan Elliott at 315, still a light 300, right?
Light.
And then 339 here for Glenn Logan, who's a undrafted free agent from LSU. So, like, who knows if he's even going to make the team. Other than that, you have nothing but pass rushers, which is one thing. But when you're asking Jordan Elliott, who I have said this from day one, people gave me flack for it on draft day, I felt like he was not as strong as he needed to be coming out of Missouri. You look at his tape over the last 2 years, strength has been beating him bad. He's just not strong. Some guys are big, they're just not strong, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, strength is about genetics. Like, you can get in the gym and lift a bunch of weights, but there's only so much that's going to do when it comes to your football strength, right?
He gets washed way too quick. Like when he's getting blocked, you can get double team and be in your gap, right? but don't get caved all the way outside or caved all the way down. And now that little the gap that you need to be, you've made the B gap the A and B gap, because now you've got washed from B gap all the way past A, and he just does it. To me, I've always said it, man. I know they're not going to go after the Ndamukong Suhs of the world, but I'm still, if you're going to tell me the Cleveland Browns are going to have to, play ball and win a division, Najee Harris is going to run the football. Joe Mixon is going to run the football. Lamar Jackson and Dobbins and Gus Edwards, and all they're going to do is run the football. If you can't stop the run, you're in trouble, because then you got three quarterbacks and three different teams in this division that have skill positions that can hurt you. So they have to be able to stop the run for Myles Garrett and the other guys to get on the perimeter and rush the passer.
And this is where they get into an issue, right? I don't think necessarily they're going to run into this issue when teams are trying to run the ball on them, right? Because you still got Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. Here's where they run into issues with this, and here's where we've seen this become a problem, right? It's one of the things I've complained about during the Andrew Berry years. I don't complain about much how he builds his roster. I have complained consistently about this, and I've been proven right on it, in my opinion. It's when you need to not have the quarterback run and you want to keep him in the pocket is when this deficiency in this area gets you in trouble. Because if you have no middle pressure, if Jordan Elliott is going to get snapped off into a slope immediately by any double team, by any single team really, but any double team he sees, then what you're doing is, when you do go to cover three, right? Like they like to go three high quarters, whatever they want to do to smother, and the quarterback has some time because they're not necessarily doing an aggressive downhill scheme, he can hold the ball and know, especially when it's Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, the two mobile quarterbacks in our division, they can hold that ball, and then they know that there's going to be a seam right up there, and then the next guy isn't going to be until JOK, who's probably holding middle seam, right? Like, so he's not going to be able to come downhill and attack just because you step up, because he's going to free up a tight end. So now he's in a situation to where he has to hold and give up at least, if we're talking Joe Burrow, 5 yards. Lamar Jackson could be 30. Right? And that's where they run it. Like, if we want to know why the Browns have had such a problem against Lamar Jackson his entire career, why it's been a problem, right? Unless he throws you 4 interceptions, even then, we still can't do nothing about it, right? The reason is because the interior opens up in the middle when he holds the ball, and then he's just able to escape. It don't matter how good your coverage is at that point.
You know what they started to do? And you watch it. Go watch all the pressures that they got home against the Bears, when I think they had 9 or 10 sacks and Myles Garrett had like 5. A lot of those pressures, what the Browns started doing was they were getting gashed so much on runs from quarterbacks just taking the ball, running right up the middle of the field, washing the tackles out and just getting upfield. They started running text, twist, and where Jadeveon Clowney was looping and coming inside, Myles Garrett was coming inside, they even started lining Myles Garrett up at 3 technique. Mm-hmm. And because Myles Garrett is so physically gifted, the guards was just getting knocked back into the backfield, and you still had Jadeveon Clowney being able to get outside and keep contained. So they started running these games and coming up with these race car packages where they had 3 defensive ends, sometimes 4 defensive ends out there, and they were able to stop guys. But when it was just regular defense, like the defense tackles were getting washed, pushed out the way, and it's 3rd and 7. And that's as a defensive lineman, that hurts your heart the most. 3rd and 7, you're supposed to be off the field.
And he goes up and
and run and get 12
he's sliding. Yeah, and that's where I get concerned about how this defense is going to function is, hey, the coverage might be good, but what are we going to do? Because I know everybody's like, oh, let's just run spy. Ain't no spy in the world going to do anything about Lamar Jackson. Like, that's not how you – like, no NFL team's going to run spy on Lamar Jackson. It's not how you handle that situation, just because there's no linebacker that you want one-on-one with Lamar Jackson. You would rather,
field, man.
Yeah, you would rather just
feel that's a wrap.
You would rather just play every defense like you're expecting a mesh route, right? Like just have dudes in every corner in case he runs, than have a spy out there, right? You would just rather just run cover 6 the whole game. Just run it. Well, even then, because you'll have that one backside free where Denzel Ward's going to be, but then you can have somebody slide over and cover less field. Yeah. You don't want nobody running a spy on Lamar Jackson. Joe Burrow, sure, but I think even you can't really do that against Joe Burrow because of the wide receiver personnel. You're not going to waste a DB or a linebacker in coverage when they got all of the wide receivers in the world there. So, like, spy's not an option for them. So they need stronger defensive line play, defensive tackle play. And I'll give them this. If Perrion is who I think he is, if you switch him to 3-tech and he plays well, you're in a less bad spot because now instead of trying to figure out all 4 guys, you got Perrion. Sheldon Day is going to factor into the rotation somewhere, and he's going to be Sheldon Day. Right, he's going to be Sheldon Day, which is a solid guy. Yeah, 3rd, 4th, like he's not terrible. So you got Sheldon Day. Maybe Taven Bryant's okay, right? But then still, you're in this spot to where it's like, Tommy Togiai, situational at best. Jordan Elliott, he's not good at anything.
How often do you think that you'll see in rush packages? Because they do have Chase Winovich, right? And I thought he had some rush ability coming out of Michigan. How much do you think you'll see Myles Garrett at 3 technique?
I think they got to be careful with how often they do that because you don't want to get caught with Myles inside and then just let him boot you.
It's nasty in there.
Yeah, and just let him boot you and then try, because it's easier to take Myles out the play if he's at 3-tech, which is why you want to keep him at 4. But it's one of those things to where, like, yeah, you might have to live with that and just eat the bad on that and just sacrifice what you're going to get from Myles. But I'm pretty sure Myles don't want to be playing a bunch of 3-tech, right?
I'm pretty sure he's like, hold on, how many snaps am I in there? Listen, give me if he's in the 4-eye, he might say, okay, cool. But if he's kicked all the way solid in the 3, he might want to be like, listen, I'm not going to be here too often.
And here's what I think is one of the real solutions I think is going to be out there. I don't think a lot of people are talking about for this room is I think right now they're still going to trust their young guys, right? Andrew Berry, he drives me crazy in both good and bad ways with his faith in who he is drafted, right? Sometimes it works out and he's right and I'm wrong, but sometimes he's wrong and he knows he's wrong and he sticks with Jordan Elliott for way too long, right? It's the price of having somebody who's stable at that spot. So this is what I think they're waiting on. I think they're going to wait till these pads get on, give them 2 preseason games. If Tommy Togiai and Jordan Elliott don't look like they're ready to show, and I mean, Jordan Elliott needs to show a significant step to stay on this team, I think, in my opinion. But Tommy Togiai, he might have some more wiggle room because he was only drafted last year. But if you don't see anything that shows you that they're NFL rotation players, it's going to be like, remember 2018 where all the defensive tackles just got replaced by the third cut? Yeah, it might be that. And they're going to replace these D tackles with nobody that you know. It's not going to be the names you know. It's not going to be Ndamukong Suh. It's going to be like a Devereaux Lawrence or like dudes like that who you don't know of. But
did you say Devereaux?
Devereaux Lawrence, right? Like, remember him? They just brought him on randomly. But I think that's more likely. And I think ultimately you just need 60s, man. Like, you don't need 91 overalls on that defensive line, on that tackle room. You just need dudes. Just hold the ground. That's all I need you to do. Hold the ground.
And all you need is
don't
2
be
downs.
A liability.
You don't need 3 down guys. Yeah. 2 downs.
I just need 2 guys who can do that. I know Sheldon Day, if you throw him out there, he's not a liability. He's going to be all right. He's not a starter. He's not a liability. But you might have to just live with it at this point, right? Maybe Taven Bryant cannot be a liability. He's shown flashes of not being a liability in the past. Yeah. And then the hope is that Perrion could be a little bit above not a liability, right? He might be a liability in some areas, but if he's strong enough in pass rush, you'll live with it. That 3rd guy is a problem, though. That 4th guy is a problem because it's either Taven Bryant's not good, and that's a whole nother thing, or you run into a situation where Taven Bryant's not good And then you got Jordan Elliott out there. And the reason why we notice so badly when Myles Garrett ain't on the field, it's just not because Myles Garrett's not out there. It's because it was Myles Garrett not out there. It was Porter Gustin in there. It was Jordan Elliott out there. Your defensive line went from a ferocious beast to a turtle without a shell, like in the middle of them games.
Joe Smith? No,
he was
Joe Jackson.
Joe Jackson. He was all right. I thought they would keep him, right? He was all right. He was the one. He took Porter Gustin's job, right? Because So it was just such a mess there, right? And even with Chase Winovich, he's not somebody you're gonna throw out there at true four. Like he's somebody you want to put outside shoulder of the tackle, in between the tight end. You want to put him
the
like
wonder kid Alex Wright. Alex Wright, man? What about the wonder kid?
I think that's what they're. I think he's gonna have some snaps, right? I wonder, are they gonna run a lot of wide nine? Like, is that the thinking? Because that's the only thing that makes sense at this point, right? They run a wide. Because
I'm sitting there thinking, like, they drafted 10 defensive ends. They drafted Perion Winfrey's boy from Oklahoma. How many Oklahoma cats did they just scout?
They got him, Isaiah, Woods, and Mike Woods,
the receiver. Yeah.
I like Isaiah. Isaiah has some versatility there that I like to see. I want to see what he does in the preseason. But I'm just wondering.
Talk about the other position that was people were scared. I thought you were going to talk about wide receivers, but you came with the D tackle game.
Well, see, you got Deshaun Watson. I'm not worried about the wide receiver because you got Deshaun Watson. Like once Deshaun Watson's out there, Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones going to seem like good enough. You know what I mean? When it's not, it's not. When he's not out there, it's going to be a problem, right? You're not going to be able to put up like quick points. But that was the reality of Jacoby Brissett anyways. Like I wasn't expecting that pass game to be explosive with Jacoby Brissett regardless. But when it's this defensive tackle room, I worry about it because I've seen this weigh Myles Garrett down, the pressure that they put on him. It's nice that they have somebody on the edge. But also, Jadeveon Clowney's injury prone. So what if he gets hurt and then we just throwing out Myles Garrett into pips again? We've seen how that ends.
And Joe Woods he's not a blitz guy. He's not going to put all people up there and be like, oh, well, we'll just run blitz. They're not doing that. Like, he's going to play for the most part. He's going to come with his 4 game. And he may throw a couple in here. Maybe Delpit comes a couple times or you get JLK on some stuff. But other than that, you're going to have 4. So that's another thing that scares me is the simple fact that he's just going to have these dudes up there like
Rushing
and having
4.
faith that they're going to get home. I don't know, man.
And this is why I say
better than me.
People who say that Myles Garrett is not better than TJ Watt because of sack numbers don't understand what they asking Myles Garrett to do out here is ridiculous. It is ridiculous what they asked this man to do. They asked him to play in 3 different spots with no help at times, and he just delivers. And people be like, he goes away in some of these games. He ain't got no choice because sometimes they go, the only guy we got to block is 95. Let's just throw everything at him.
He was
and then he still
hurt.
gets
His
through.
groin was terrible yesterday. His groin looked like turkey pastrami.
People
like
tell
he was
me
just not.
People tell me Myles Garrett disappeared in games last year. He was number 1 in the league in pressures. I don't know how you disappear if you number 1 in the league in pressures, but everybody envious of TJ Watt. He had more pressures than TJ Watt, and he doesn't have the help that TJ Watt has. Like Myles Garrett is. I know this term is dead because I heard somebody say it for Davis Mills, but Myles Garrett is actually him. Like he is that dude. It's just I worry about, I worry about what you got around him. Now, again, Perion could work out, and then you're fine with Jadeveon staying healthy. All of a sudden, you got a really good rotation there. You're going to put some pressure on guys. But if that's not the case.
I need about 13. I need 13 from Clowney this year. Clowney will play the run. It's just, he just doesn't have that plethora of moves in terms of like getting to the quarterback. He doesn't have the bend that Myles Garrett has. He's not as physically gifted as him, but he's still a freak of nature. Yeah. If he can give me 13 sacks this year, and even if Myles only says I get 17 to 18, right? I think they'll be pretty good. That means that they're doing third down a lot, and that means they keeping guys within, 3rd and 7, 3rd and long because they can have that many opportunities to rush. So
that's what I'm saying. We'll see. And this is the most interesting. Like, I know, look, during camp, it's going to be easy. You're going to see all these 7-on-7 footages. You're going to see all this Deshaun Watson stuff. And I'm going to tell you right now, Deshaun's going to look really good. Like I'm not worried about that. Like is Deshaun Watson going to be good? Yeah, he's going to be good. He's pretty good at quarterback. It's been established before that he's good at this thing in the NFL. Like he's not a projection, and that's going to be real shiny. But if you want to look at the real meat and bones of this team, right? If the defense can reach expectations, we need to be looking at that line of scrimmage. We need to see if one of these young guys can step up and be a guy, because we're going to know, because every level, I don't care what string you're playing against on the Cleveland Browns, they have a good guard on every level. So we're going to know, right? Michael Dunn's good. Right. What's the boy? Blake Hanson's a pretty good guard. Awful tackle, but pretty good guard, right? They have good second team guards, good third team guards, and a decent second team center. So if you see some of those guys eat on them second teams, okay, I'm gonna lean off the gas on the pressure here,
right? Because you know they're going to get some decent people.
Yeah, so you know that they're going to be all right. But if he gets to camp, and every time you see that ball snap and it look like this. Like, that's what the line looked like. You know what I mean? If we keep hearing reports about how good this second team offensive line looks, I'm concerned, right? Like, we know the first team offensive lines. Like, I can't really judge what this unit's going to do versus the first team offensive line of Cleveland Browns, especially on the interior. Because it's like Hall of Famer Joe Bitonio, or soon to be Hall of Famer, I think. I think he has the resume to get up there. He's just a guard. If they put guards in.
That's the only reason. And if the Browns get to some, like, deep in the playoffs, he'll start getting that love where it's kind of, they gave that Jason Whitworth game. Whitworth wasn't even that good, and they just calling his name, and he won the Super Bowl. It's like, yeah. They don't let him,
especially since he's the only dude who's been here forever that's still on the team. They were like, he'll get that Andrew Whitworth, like, he's been here forever. Let's Joe Bitonio, one of the greats. He
ate sandwiches and with Joe Thomas. I think they drank from the same Gatorade bottle. I'll tell you what, this guy.
If the Browns get to make a Super Bowl run, I promise you, Browns fan, by the third playoff game, you are going to be tired of hearing the origin story of Joe Bitonio. They're going to bring it up in every broadcast. Like the last one didn't bring it up. They tried to do it in the wild card game where he didn't even play. With Joe Bitonio, he was drafted in the same draft class as Johnny Football, and he's here.
It's either him. The two people you're gonna get sick of hearing about is him and Nick Chubb, and I love Nick Chubb. I mean, but here's the thing: if Nick Chubb scores one touchdown, he's the MVP of that game. Telling you this now. Deshaun Watson has to throw for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, no picks, 200 on the ground for him to get the MVP of the Super Bowl. They are not voting for him.
He is not. Give it to Joe Bitonio for longevity, baby.
Stop. You give it to a lineman. Listen.
Hey, look, if he did if Joe Bitonio might be the one guard, now I'm like, you know what, man? That man had to block for Johnny Football. He deserve it. He deserve it. If he ever gets to the Super Bowl win, Joe Bitonio deserves it. Because I've seen who he's had to block for. Deshaun Kaiser? Like, dog, you imagine blocking for Deshaun Kaiser? And Deshaun Kaiser's worse than Johnny Football because Johnny would just turn it over right away. Like, Johnny didn't play no games with you. He wouldn't tire you out. Deshaun Kaiser would drive that thing 80 yards downfield, get to the goal line, and then throw a pick six. And make your butt come back out there after taking you 80 yards. That's what people sleep on. Like, Deshaun Kaiser was so good, he was so frustrating.
Man, he had one of the craziest arms. Remember that one point in time when they had Deshaun Kaiser out here and they said, oh, shoot, we got Corey Coleman back. Josh Gordon came out of nowhere and had that big Browns jersey on that looked like a basketball jersey, like in Tampa Bay. And
Deshaun Kaiser was in the media talking about he was a mix between Tom Brady and Cameron Newton, the Cameron Newton.
And and at this time, this is prime Cameron Newton. This is prime. He ain't coming back.
That's
ever.
The year he won MVP.
It's crazy. Tom Brady and Cam Newton. Like,
hey, look, man. For 40 yards a drive, you would believe it. Man, he would never go 3 and out. Though. That was the thing with Deshaun Kaiser that drove me crazy. He would never go 3 and out. He would always get past the 50-yard line, and then he would disappoint you in the most just throw the most egregious interception. Like, I don't think how you live with that.
He had that perpetual look on his face that he just released the football and did not see the safety. Like he always had that look, even in camp. He just was like this when he was answering questions with the media. He's like, I just let that football go, and this DB is about to jump the hell out of this.
I'm telling you, he was probably like, when I'm not thinking about it, I'm in rhythm, I'm pretty good. But when I am, because I saw him come in Green Bay, right after he got kicked out of Cleveland that one year. And he came in and he looked really good for like 5 snaps, right? He was like, okay, he driving the ball downfield. They at the 20, they're about to score. Aaron Rodgers went out. They might have a guy here in Kaiser. What'd he do? Throw a pick six. Like that, man. Like Deshaun Kaiser, most frustrating bad quarterback of all time, because people think terrible's bad. Like Cody Kessler was just awful to watch because he sucked, but Deshaun Kaiser was good enough to piss you off. Like
I'm gonna tell you, I got a weird take on, like you said, Manziel. Scamzel to me might be one of the greatest ever to do it. You know why? For the simple fact that he came out there and admittedly never looked at a playbook, never looked at no film.
He legit balled a couple games.
And he killed and just running around.
On 5'10", 190.
High on cocaine and alcohol.
Underrated. He was like, yeah, man, I was never sober in any NFL game. And to a point, you could be like, that's surprising. But then you watch like the Titans game he was not sober during that one.
What you mean? The Titans game, I said, man, this dude, he dropped some. Listen, it was one of them games where I'm gonna tell you what, there's a certain amount of people that have it quality, right? Like he had an it quality, and he was terrible. Like, he was garbage, but if you just take in consideration that he was just in the casino the night before and got 36 minutes of sleep, and he definitely needed a coffee after all of them Red Bull and vodkas the whole entire night, and he comes in and he has games where he plays pretty good. Like, he played pretty good. There's a 49ers game. There's a Tennessee Titan game where he threw a couple long passes, and, I mean, and for him to be like a small, like, short, like, elf, like Hobbit type character, he just would run away from people. He had athleticism, like he just would do stuff. I'm like, man, this is crazy.
If the NFL had the version or equivalent of an and one mixtape, Johnny Manziel would have been God on it.
He's a professional.
He's a professional. He was never meant to play actual football. He was always meant to play skeet ball, right? Street ball on the side, like just that street ball stuff. Like that's what he was really like. He just wake up, unofficial quarterback, ball. Like that's the thing that people sleep on with Johnny. Never was going to be a franchise quarterback because like you can't live in the NFL living how he was. But, you know, interesting nonetheless. But we've been down memory lane. I'm pretty sure people are mad at me about the whole Bernie Kosar thing and the first part of this whole thing. But hey, man, if we do end up saying that, here's the thing I'll say, and then we'll end it on this. All I'm saying, I'm not trying to disrespect Bernie Kosar, not trying to put any shade to him. I believe he's a legend. He deserves to be in the Ring of Fame of Cleveland. And he deserves to, you know, have some respect on his name. Absolutely. But the hope is that one day you have somebody to surpass Bernie Kosar, because Bernie Kosar never won a Super Bowl. And you want somebody to get to that Super Bowl. So you want somebody to be better. And this is the best chance we got at somebody being better is Mr. 4 over there with Deshaun Watson, because we know how good he's been in the NFL, and he's only approaching his prime. But that's going to do it for GBQC. G, let them know where to find you. Read that paragraph off on where to find you.
All right, let me get my paragraph. Hold on, here we go. All right, here we go. One take, Johnny, go. You can find me 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. You can check me out on 92.3 The Fan or The Barbershop. I'm on every single Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. You can listen to it on the Odyssey app. You can rewind it 24 hours. If you miss it, you can be in your car, you're out and about doing your thing. Holla at your boy. You can follow me on Twitter at GBush91, and you can also definitely follow me on YouTube as well. Locked On Browns podcast, a podcast every single day. I'm getting in better shape. I'm trying to get my Quincy impersonation off. He's been doing daily blogs. It's a little more difficult than people think. So watch me on Locked On. And of course, if you just want to subscribe to The Barbershop, you can just search Garrett Bush, hit that notification bell, and you get all my stuff.
Please let your doctor know if you subscribe to G Bush. The side effects might.
Let your wife know too. Like, you know, like don't. I be saying crazy stuff sometimes.
Okay, Black Wilson. Let's end it out on that one. All right, well, that's it.